Matzah Shabbos Kodesh, we are learning the Amud for Shabbos Kodesh, the 5th day of Chodesh Shvat, and we are holding by the 4 lines down from the top of Tzadi Hey Amud Beis of Maseches Pesachim. The Gemara says as follows: Harishon Ton Halal Ba'achilasa, that the first Pesach requires Halal to be recited be'achilaso while it is being eaten. And we're just going to send out the link here so that everybody can follow along. And there we go. Okay. Harishon Taun Halu Ba'achilaso, says the Gemara Mina Mili. How do you know this? Amar Rabbi Yochanan says Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Shimon ben Tzadok from Rabbi Shimon ben Tzadok. Amar Krabba, because the pasuk tells us Hashir Yalachem Kalel His Kaddish Chag, that pasuk in Yeshayahu, that the song will be for you, Kalel is Chadish Chag, like the night of the Kedusha of the Yom Tov. Laila HaMakudesh L'Chag Tan Halal. It seems very clear in the pasuk that the Laila that is made into a Chag requires Halal. Halal Lalish Ein Makudesh L'Chag, but the Yom Tov, that is the Laila that is not made into a Chag, Ein Tan Halal, that does not require Halal, and the second Pesach is not a Yom Tov. It's not a Yom Tov that would require you to sing Halal. Says Rashi, Laila Makudesh L'Chag Kagon Pesach Rishon, for example, Pesach Rishon, as opposed to Shein Makudesh L'Chag Kagon Leil Achilas Pesach Sheni Shein a Yom Tov. It's not a Yom Tov at all. There is a mitzvah of Achilas Pesach, but it is not a Yom Tov. Says the Gemara, quoting from the Mishnah, once again, Zev Zeh Tunim Halal Be'asi Asan. Both these and these, meaning the first Pesach and the second Pesach, require Halal to be said, not just, it's not just the mitzvah of Halal Be'achila, which is only by first Pesach, but Be'asi Asan, and that is required for both Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni. Says the Gemara, my time, what is the rationale behind this din? One possibility is, Laila Kamamait, Yom Lo Kamamait. The pasuk says that Ashir Yalachem Kalel is Kaddish Chag, but that defines only the Laila as a Chag. Only when the Laila is a Chag, that's when you're going to sing Halal. But if the Yom is a Chag, if it's a Yom, so even if it's not a Chag, then it would still require you to sing Halal. Alternatively, this is a fascinating limud. This is a svara, meaning that's Ibai Sema a pasuk, that the pasuk does not exclude Halal from being said in the day. Or alternatively, the Ibai Sema, you could say, it's possible that you would consider that the Jewish people would be engaged in doing the mitzvah of Shchitas HaPesach or in the mitzvah of Netilas Lulav, not saying Halal. That's an impossibility. Meaning, Rashi here says, Dikevan the Dvar mitzvah ton Halal. Since you are doing a mitzvah, it requires Halal. Not every mitzvah requires Halal. We have many mitzvahs that you don't say Halal. It's not like you say Halal when you do a bris milah, right? Yeah. But is it possible that the Jewish people would be engaged in this mitzvah, not saying Halal? So the Rashi asked the obvious question: what do you mean? Nobody is shaking the lulav while bringing Korban Pesach. So Rashi says, Agra Nasva de Braisahi Hachav Basa. This is just the continuation of the Braisa that we will see later in the final parak of Maseches Pesachim, and then we will discuss this a little bit further. This fascinating svara that obviously you would say Halal while bringing Korban Pesach. Okay, both of them are Ne'achalim Tzli. Both of them have to be eaten roasted. Says the Gemara as follows: Ne'achalim Tzli Shabbos in Tuma Lai. The chiyuv of Korban Pesach is, on both cases, is going to override Shabbos. Tumah Leibit is not going to override Tumah. Says the Gemara as follows: Maseches the Rabbi Yehuda. Our mission is clearly not the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. The Tanya, the Brisa says as follows: Doichas Shabbos ve'in doichas Tumah. That Pesach Sheni overrides Shabbos, but does not override Tumah. Meaning, if you're talking about Pesach Sheni, you still don't bring it. Rabbi Yehuda says after doichas Tumah. Pesach Sheni is also going to override Tumah. Meaning, if you're tamim for the first Pesach, and then you're tamim for the second Pesach, you still bring up the second Pesach. My time, the Tanakama, what's the rationale? The Tanakama and the Tana of our Mishnah, clearly. Mibnei Tumah d'chiyasiv, yachsav yasav Tumah. If you were pushed off of first Pesach because you were tameh, what, now you're going to bring the second Pesach instead of Tumah? That's ridiculous. The reason that you didn't bring the Pesach is because you're tameh. If you're still tameh, for some reason or another, you didn't become tar, or you became tamar again, tummy once again. Of course, you wouldn't bring it. Pesach is not brought in a state of tumah. That's the din. Rabbi Yehuda, but according to Rabbi Yehuda, no, the Torah gave you another opportunity in order to bring it in a state of tara. If it didn't work out for you, you didn't merit to bring in a state of tara. Sometimes you bring in a state of tumah. I mean, the ideal is to bring in a state of tara, but if you can't bring in a state of tara, bring it in a state of tumah. That's why you give you a second round. The Rabbanan told in the Brisa as follows: Pesach Rishon Deiches HaShabbos, Pesach Sheni Deiches HaShabbos. First Pesach and second Pesach both are going to override Shabbos. Pesach Rishon Deiches HaTumah, Pesach Sheni Deiches HaTumah. Oh, this is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that we've seen. That the second Pesach, Pesach Rishon Deiches HaTumah, Pesach Sheni Deiches HaTumah. Both of them are going to be Deiches HaTumah. Pesach Rishon Ta'on Lina, Pesach Sheni Ta'on Lina. And both Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheni require lina. That means that you have to sleep over in Yerushalayim that night. That's called lina, meaning from Lashon lalun, to sleep over. Deiches HaTumah. This is din of Deiches HaTumah. Come on, whose opinion is this? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda. This is the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that we've seen. Problem. Ula Rabbi Yehuda ton lina. Does Rabbi Yehuda really require you to sleep over? Pesach Sheni v'hatanya Rabbi Yehuda. I mean, don't we have a brayso that Rabbi Yehuda says minayin Pesach Sheni shein ton lina? How do you know that Pesach Sheni does not require you to stay over in Yerushalayim? Shenemar, because the pasuk says ufanisa baba kevalachta la'alacha, that you clean up in the morning and you pack up, you turn around in the morning, and you go home. Uksiven, then the pasuk says sheishes yom taichel matzos. 6 days you're going to eat matzos. Hanechal l'shisha ton lina sheinechal l'shisha ein ton lina. That which has matzah that comes with it that has to be eaten for 6 days. That's what requires lina. Meaning, means that you have to stay over in Yerushalayim, pack up in the morning, and then go home. But that's only true if you're going to be eating matzah for 6 days. But Pesach Sheni, you're not eating matzah for another 6 days. Says the Gemara, yeah, this is a problem. It seems to be that there is an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says that it does require lina, an opinion of Rabbi Yehuda that says it does not require lina. Says the Gemara, yeah, no problem. Tonight, va'ali b'd Rabbi Yehuda. There were two opinions, both of them pinned themselves on Rabbi Yehuda, meaning Rabbi Yehuda only said one of these things, but there were different traditions as to exactly what Rabbi Yehuda said. Both of them are legitimate opinions. One of them got it wrong in terms of what exactly Rabbi Yehuda said, but both opinions within the Mishnayos and the Braysos are legitimate opinions, depending on how you want to learn, but only one of them is correct to be Rabbi Yehuda, and the Gemara leaves it as that. Moving on to the next Mishnah, the Mishnah says, HaPesach sheba b'tumah, a Pesach that is brought in a state of tumah, that is allowed to be brought in a state of tumah, lo yochel mimenu zavin v'zav nidas v'yoldos. If it's brought in a state of tumah, that means tumas meis. That's when it would be allowed to be brought in a state of tumah. You cannot have zavin and zavos and nidas and yoldos that are eating from that Pesach, meaning they are not tamei meis, they are tamei for something else, and they want to come and eat it. You don't let them eat it. V'im achlu, but if they did, p'turim mikares, you're not going to be chayv kares for that. We're going to have to understand why. Rabbi Eliezer poiter af al bias migdash, and Rabbi Eliezer also potted them from coming into the Beis Hamikdash. If everybody coming to the Beis Hamikdash is tamei for tumas meis, then even though they are not tamei meis, tamei as zavin, zavos, nidus, and yoldos, they would be allowed to come. Well, not that they'd be allowed; they'd be potter if they did come in. They wouldn't be chayv kares. Says the Gemara as follows, quoting from a brayso. Tana Rabbanan, and the Rabbanan told in the brayso, zavin v'zavos, nidus v'yoldos. These four individuals that have a lengthy period of tahara and have not yet achieved the tahara. Sha'achlu b'Pesach sheba b'tumah, that ate the Korban Pesach that was brought in a state of tumah. Yachol yu chayav, and maybe you would think that they are chayav kares. Talmud Lema, therefore the pasuk comes along to say, Kol tahar yachol basar. Anybody that is tahar should be allowed to eat from the meat of the sacrifice, of the korban. V'anefesh asher toichal basar mizevach Hashem v'mshel Hashem, and anybody that eats from the basar of the shlam that is brought to Hashem, v'tumasai alav, and his tumah is on him, v'nichrasa, he gets kares for that. That's the pasuk in Vayikra, in the 7th parak. Nechal taharim, so the Brayso darshans, nechal taharim, that which can be eaten for taharim, that's food for taharim, chayavin alav mishum tameh. That's where you be chayav because of tumah. She'en nechal taharim, but that which is not eaten to taharim, meaning it's not given to taharim to eat, ein tmeim chayavin alav mishum tameh. There would be no chiyuv, meaning no isur kares for somebody that is tamei to eat it, if it was already allowed to be eaten by people that are tamei. Now, that lichor doesn't mean that it's mutter for them to eat. It means that it's osir, but they would not be chayev kares. That's the limit. That that which could have been eaten by somebody tahar, that was then eaten by somebody that was tamei. That's where there is a chayev kares. What about Beis Mikdash coming into the Beis Mikdash itself? Rabbi Eliezer says Yachol dachkai zavin v'nichnasul azar. Maybe you think that if the zavin pushed their way through, we saw this a couple prakim blatt earlier in the Samachs, Samach Zayin. Yachol dachkai zavin v'nichnasul azar. Maybe the zavin pushed their way through, and they entered into the Azar. But Pesach the Pesach was brought in a state of Tumah. Maybe you think that they be chayav. Therefore, the pasuk comes along to tell you, you have to send out of the camp anybody that's a tzarua, anybody that's a zav, and anybody that's a tamal nefesh. Mishman shetmei mesim mishdalchim. At a time that tmei mesim was sent out, zavin and mitzrayim mishdalchim. That's when you have to kick out the zavin and the mitzrayim as well. Ain't tmei mesim mishdalchim, and if the tmei mesim are not going to be kicked out of the camp, ain't zavin mitzrayim mishdalchim, you don't have to kick out the zavin and the mitzrayim. Meaning, if somebody's allowed in the state of tumas meis, everybody would be allowed as well. By Rav Yosef asked the following question, according to the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer, dachlu tmei mesim. Whatever person that's tamei meis pushed their way through, v'nichnasu leheichal, and went not just into the Azara. The Azara is the outer courtyard of the Beis Hamikdash. That's where the mizbech is that you're supposed to be at. What if they pushed their way? V'nichnasu leheichal. They went into the heichal, the inner court, the inner sanctum of the Beis Hamikdash, the enclosed section that only Kohanim are allowed to go in. So v'nichnasu leheichal b'Pesach haba b'tumah. They went into the heichal during a Pesach haba b'tumah. Mahu, what's the din there? Says Rav Yosef, maybe there's two ways of looking at it. Midi issue to Masazara, issue nami to Maseichal. Since the Tumah of the Azara was mutar, maybe the Tumah Heichal is also mutar. Meaning, only a Kohen is allowed to go in there. What if the Kohen is Tamei? So if he goes in there, he gets a Chiv Kares of Bia B'tumah. But let's say that he goes in. He goes in instead of Tumah. Do we say that since you're allowed to be in the Azara instead of Tumah, the whole idea of Tumah in the Beis Hamikdash is now on hold? The issue Tumah Azara issue now in Tumah Seichel or Dilma, or alternatively, the issue that which was made mutter is mutter. Lo issue, that which was not made mutter is not mutter. Amar Rabba says to Rav Yosef, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, Vayishalchum min hamachane, and they will send them out min hamachane, from the camp. Afilu miktsas machane, even from a little bit of the camp, meaning that each part of the camp has a different din. Every area that has a certain dinim of kedusha and certain dinim of tumantara has a different din. So therefore, even when they're not sent out of the entirety of the camp, they are still sent out of a piece of the camp, the further inner section that they don't need to be in order to bring Korban Pesach. Igdamri, and there are those that said, Amar Rava said, Amar Kra, the pasuk says, El michutz lamachane tishalchum, from the end of the pasuk. El michutz lamachane tishalchum, you have to send them to the end of the camp. Kol heicha de karinim bay el michutz lamachane tishalchum, anytime that you would apply el michutz lamachane tishalchum, that you would send them all the way out of the camp. Karinim bay vayishalchum min hamachane, that they would be sent out of any part of the camp. Meaning, you only apply that there is an isur of entering into some area in a state of tumah if you would send people all the way out of the camp. But if you wouldn't send anybody out of the camp, because everybody's coming into the Beis Hamikdash in a state of tumah, then all bets are off. So there are two versions of what Rava said over here, either that he agreed with the first side of Rav Yosef's question, or that he agreed with the second side of Rav Yosef's question. And then Rav Yosef asked another question. But Rav Yosef asked another question. What happens if the people that are tamei push their way through? And they ate the imuri pesach, meaning the stuff that was supposed to be put on the mizbech, they accidentally ate some of that. And it was in a state of tumah. Turning over to Tzadi Vav Amud Aleph, Mahu, what is the din there? Mid Ishri Tumas Basar, Ishri Namin Tumas Emurim, or Dilma, Mad Ishri. Since the tum of the basar, meaning something that you wouldn't ordinarily be allowed to eat, since that was made mutter, maybe the imurim are also mutter now, meaning there's no isurei achila that apply here anymore. Or alternatively, ma de isri, only that which was made mutter, which is the basar instead of tuma, that was made mutter. Ma de lo isri, that which was not made mutter was not made mutter. Amar Rava says, michti, let's see. We'll just finish off this little piece over here because it is relevant to the parsha that we just learned. Michti, let's see. Tumas imurim mehecha is rabbi. Where do you know that there is a din of tumas imurim? Meaning, where do we know that there's any issue of tumas imurim? Tumas basar. We learn that from the din of tumas basar, meaning it's an extension of the din of tumas basar. The pasuk says, "Asher la Hashem," that which belongs to Hashem. The rabbi says imurim, that includes the imurim. Kol hecha de isei. Tumas basar is le tumas emurim. Anytime that there is tumas basar, that's where there be tumas emurim. Kol heicha de leise tumas basar. Anytime that there is no tumas basar, leise tumas emurim, then there will be no extension of tumas emurim. And then we'll just see the question of Bai Rabbi Zera. Rabbi Zera asked the question: Emurei Pesach Mitzrayim heicha aktarinhu. Says Rabbi Zera, the emurim of Pesach Mitzrayim, the emurim that were brought when the Jewish people were leaving Egypt, that Pesach Mitzrayim, which is going to be the next Mishnah discussing that. So we'll get to Mrs. Baruch tomorrow, but just to finish up until the Mishnah, Rabbi Zera wants to know, the Emurim of Pesach Mitzrayim, Heicha Aktarin, where did they offer those? Amale Abai says to Maman Leimal on the Loi Shviski Amud, who tells us that they weren't just roasted and eaten. V'oid, and furthermore, Hatan Rav Yosef, didn't Rav Yosef teach us, give them Mizbachas HaYisham, that there were 3 Mizbachas that the Jewish people had in Mitzrayim, ala mashkov, on the lintel, al shtem mezuzos. Those were the 3 mizbachas. V'su midi achrin lehava, and there was nowhere else that they burnt any part of the carbon, which means that the blood was put onto the doorpost and onto the lintel, but the imurim they ate, which meant that the very first Pesach Mitzrayim, there was no mizbech eating any part of the flesh. All of it was eaten. The whole thing was eaten up. And this is a continuation from the sugi that we've just discussed, which is that the tumah of the imurim is learned out of tumas basar and Hashem Baruch. We will continue with the next Mishnah of Mabe and Pesach Mitzrayim and Pesach Daris. All of these parshas. This is Jackpot in the Amud Yomi. That in the parshas that we're learning about these sugyas, we are learning about it in the Amud as well. But Hashem Baruch, to be continued. And hope everybody had a beautiful Shabbos. We will see you all tomorrow. A good